Hi and welcome to this video which we'll be going through with you how to write introductions and conclusions. So the objectives of the session is to enable you to be able to explain the purpose of an introduction and analyse the components of an introduction, and also encourage you to construct a plan for an introduction for one of your assignments. In addition, we'll also be following a similar process with reviewing conclusions. So I think it's really important to know that all the principles of introductions and conclusions remain the same for written work and also presentations as well. So at UCC, they contribute to marks within your presentation communication and often in evaluation as well. The presentation is suitable for all levels, so there are basic and the advanced options available for you to take depending whether you're on level 4, 5 or 6, and also depending on what level you're working at within those boundaries. Okay, so something worth bearing in mind here is thinking about introductions and then the body of an assignment or presentation and the conclusion as to thinking about the news at 10. So you can liken it to the news at 10 in the fact that if you watch the news, you are usually provided with the headlines. So you're going to tell your audience or tell them what you're going to be telling them about, talking about. So you're going to tell them what you're going to tell them. And in that sense, it's the headlines, the introduction of what your assignment, what your presentation is going to be all about. Then you're going to get on with it. You're going to tell them all about everything that you want to discuss in your assignment or your presentation. So that's part 2. So you're going to tell them. And at the end, usually there's a wrap up where the news broadcaster will review again the core highlights of the news that's just been presented. And in a similar way, your conclusion kind of works like that. It's wrapping everything up about what's been discussed. So I think that's a really good analogy to think about when you're writing an assignment or giving a presentation. So let's look at writing introductions first of all then. So get you to think first of all of what you consider the purpose of an introduction is. Feel free to take a pause if you want to in the video, but let's see if what you think is similar to what I think and what the literature has to say. So what you'll notice is that there are a number of core features within an introduction, and it can be as short or as long as you require, and it really does depend on what level you're working at. So there are lots of different definitions of stages of introduction. I've just summarised them from my perspective. So we're going to look at importance of the assignment, the topic that you're talking about. That's kind of an advanced level, but there's no reason why you can't start at advanced right from the beginning. Again, find your area that you feel you're most comfortable with working at. You need to provide the aim of the assignment. Well, this is essential, and I would expect to see that in every presentation and in every assignment. You may, if it's relevant, provide a thesis. So that's an argument, a core argument that you may be sort of alluding to throughout the whole of your assignment. And I'd say so if it's relevant and on an advanced level, level 6, quite a few will be looking at thesis, particularly if you're doing a research assignment. And it's essential that you provide an outline of what you will be discussing in the assignment as well. So they're the core areas, and we'll look at those in a little bit more of a detail. So from the importance of the topic, really here, this is your ideal opportunity to entice the reader into your way of thinking, to understand why this is important, to explain what the importance of it, and actually perhaps some background to it. You may provide outlines from the fundamental issues that are affecting the area of topic that you are discussing as well in this. So the idea is to provide a kind of a compelling argument, an enticement for the reader to think, yeah, you know what, this is important, I want to read this. Okay, now some students at a more advanced level may provide a quote that sums up the importance of the topic or relevance of your assignment and the argument that you wish to address. So you might find a quote by someone, an author or a researcher, or it could be if you're looking at education, it could be the teacher's voice, the child's voice. It could be a number of different things that kind of like encompass the core things about that topic. So some people put a quote at the top of their assignment, which encapsulates all of that. But it's really important that that quote is put in context. It's kind of not left plonked there and the rest of it doesn't flow in relation to that. So if you are going to put a quote, make sure that it's in context. Aim is an essential one. So here you're explaining the aim of the assignment. You're telling me why we are bothering about doing this assignment. You're telling me the purpose of it, and that typically is going to link to the assignment guidance that you've been provided, or a question that you may have been asked to address, and the learning outcomes. Now some students will just copy and paste and almost word for word write the learning outcomes out. You could do that. I don't think it's necessarily the best way of doing it. Try and paraphrase those learning outcomes, and it's tailored to the context of your assignment. So it should be personal to your assignment. You may set the context or parameters for the aim of the assignment. So here I'm talking about if you're looking at a particular area, say again in education or leadership, tell us what area of education you're referring to. If you're looking at leadership in what? Set the parameters for your aim. This is really important because quite often topics can be quite broad. And for an assignment, you often need to narrow that down to ensure you've got enough room for analysis and evaluation. That's something that I would encourage you to speak to your lecturers about in setting that context. You may also have some defining terms that you want to share. So some descriptions of what particular words mean in the context of your writing. Now, thesis relates to the overall argument or claim that you are trying to make in your assignment. So sometimes you may have an overarching claim that you want to make, and it should include the reasoning of the opposition in the argument. So, for example, if you're writing about something political, what your overall political view is. Now, that might not be relatable or relevant in your assignment, but that's certainly something to think about, particularly for dissertations. Again, speak to your lecturer if you feel that that's something you'd like to discuss, and this is at a higher level, advanced level of writing. But certainly you will include an outline of the journey that your assignment or presentation will be taking. So the outline is like a synopsis or overview of how your writing is organised and in the order that you have organised that. So it's very difficult to write that right at the beginning of your assignment before you've written anything, because how do you know where that assignment journey is taking you? You might have an idea, and if you do and you want to write your assignment, your instruction, then please do go back over it in your proofreading. Allow yourself enough time just to proofread for instructions to ensure that it does follow the outline and journey that your writing is taking. So here's some useful points about writing introductions. So every assignment, including a presentation, should include an introduction. It should be about 5% of your word count, with a maximum probably of about 10. I think it's important not to get too het up on word counts on these. You want to just make sure that it's relevant and powerful. And be flexible with your instructions. So I've given you some ideas and core stages that might be included in an introduction, but they are not formulaic. And these will change depending on your topic, the assignment requirements, the level that you're working at, and of course, the advice that you're provided by your module tutor and the word count. What you want to kind of avoid doing is spending more time on your introduction than the rest of the body of your assignment. I think that's a cool thing. Write it in the manner that's appropriate for the audience for the assignment brief, remembering to write in the appropriate first or third time person language. I've mentioned they're really best written at the end of your assignment, but I also appreciate some people just like to just at least get something down, so it's not always as easy as that. You can, of course, use references in your introduction. I encourage you to do that, particularly with stating the importance of the subject. That's your opportunity, that if you wanted to expand and have some multiple reference there to support your argument, then by all means we encourage you to do that. But again, remember, it depends what level you are working at. I strongly implore you to share your instructions in your group tutorials, perhaps as an activity on your own or as a group, and peer review your introductions. If you're new to writing, so if you're level 4, you've just started with us, why not spend some time together sharing your instructions and giving feedback on those? To help with academic language, then I encourage you to look at the Manchester Academic Phrase Bank. You've got the link here, we'll add it to the video email, and you will have, there's a number of different phrases that you can use for introducing work on there. I also encourage you really to look at the literature reviews on in journal articles, just to see how they introduce work and obviously provide conclusions as well. Because you can get ever such a lot from reading academic journals and how they're written and the language that you can use and adapt and adopt for your own work. So I have got some examples of some introductions for you. I'm going to give you the links to have a look at yourself. There's some great examples here of introductions. And whether you're in a class exercise or spending some time on your own, then I'm going to encourage you to look at those. Okay, so that's the first activity. And then perhaps working with a peer or a small group. Hopefully by now you have got study buddy groups. So where you have your own Zoom sessions or meetups together to discuss and plan what could be included in the introduction for an agreed module, and perhaps share that with your module leader as well. So we've got our instructions are coming together. I'm going to write the overall assignment, and then we're moving now to the end part of writing a conclusion. So again, I'll get you to think first of all what you see as the purpose of a conclusion. Take a little bit of time, take time to pause the video if you want to. Just really get yourself thinking what you see the purpose of a conclusion. If you were reading someone's work, what would you like to see? Purpose of a conclusion, well, really there's so much at stake here. This is your last chance to persuade your readers to your point of view that has been substantiated throughout with your sources of reference. It's your chance to impress yourself upon the reader as a writer and a thinker. And the impression that you create in your conclusion will shape the impression that stays with your readers after they finish reading your assignment or listening to your presentation. The end should then therefore kind of convey a sense of completeness and closure, as well as also a sense of lingering possibilities of the topic and its larger meaning, its implications. And some argue that the final paragraph should close the discussion without actually closing it off. So it's almost like there's more to come, perhaps. So features of a conclusion: summarising the purpose of an assignment. This is essential. brief recap of the main issues that's been discussed, which we recommend. Restate the central argument or thesis if that's relevant, and again, if it's relevant, answer or respond to the assignment question you've been set. And I also recommend that you think about the implications for this moving forward. Again, there's no one definition of what conclusions should look like, but these are core elements that you could review. Moving forward, then explain these a little bit further, summarising the purpose of the assignment. So you're starting to introduce your conclusion here. So we want you to signpost that you've reached the end of your assignment. So here we've got some useful language that you could use. So overall, or the evidence presented within this assignment, or to conclude, there's lots of different language that you can use. Again, looking at journal articles, reading books will all give you ideas at the end of chapters, for example, ideas on language that you can use in your own assignments, signposting that you come into a conclusion. So briefly recap the main issues, so summarising those that have been discussed and identified in your assignment. You might include any counter arguments briefly that have been addressed, but really it encapsulates the journey your assignment has gone through. And I'd encourage you to do that. If it's relevant, again, restate the main argument or thesis. You may have used a powerful quote in your introduction that you want to almost come full circle with and refer back to that again. That's a really good way of writing if you have used a quote at the beginning, and it may reflect your thesis that you include in the introduction if you use one. Of course, if you are asked a specific question, then we encourage you to ensure that that is definitely addressed within your conclusion. I think the implications is an important one, considering the question, so what? What is the point of this? What have we learned from this that we can take moving forward? So highlighting the significance then of your argument of the findings, what you feel that these mean for the future. This really helps with your evaluation marks. And also, are there any limitations in your writing or things that haven't been explored that could be if you were able to expand upon your writing? So again, some useful points. Every assignment should have a conclusion, even a presentation. Again, 5 to 10% of the word count, probably longer conclusion than probably the introduction. Be flexible. Again, they will change depending on the topic, the assignment guidelines, the level that you're working at, and of course your tutor advice. Again, write it in the manner that's appropriate for the audience with the assignment brief, and you can use references, but we implore that you avoid introducing new references and any new points in a conclusion. They need to come before your overall conclusion. And again, for developing your capabilities in terms of writing conclusions, share them in the group tutorials as an activity perhaps, and peer review in your study buddy groups if you've got those. And of course, you can use this form and the one that we used before in the introductions as a bit of a checklist in reviewing your conclusions before submitting your work. Make sure that you do have time to proofread, not just for SPAG, the spelling, punctuation and grammar, but all these different areas as well. Further links at Manchester Academic Phrase Bank for writing conclusions, which I think will really help you. And I've also got some examples of conclusions that you can review in your own time. There's some great examples here that might provide a little bit of inspiration. As you appreciate, links do tend to change, so hopefully these will all be still up and running when you get the chance to have a look at these. And again, so as an activity for you to do, you can review the conclusions that are on the previous slide, and again, work together, agree on a collective module, discuss and plan out what you think could be in the conclusion for your assignment, and perhaps share those with your module leader in your tutorials, for example. I think actually discussing conclusions is quite important in a tutorial, because then you kind of see whether or not we're getting it. I think that's an important part, because core learning points tend to come out of a conclusion at the end, and of course mini conclusions as you go through. And the last slide I want to leave you with is believe in yourself. Work at your level for what's right for you. If you are working at a certain level that you've seen in the slides, but you feel that you could push yourself a little bit further, believe in yourself and do that. I hope you found this video of use, and we look forward to having your feedback on it. Thank you for listening.